I also made the case for owning Bitcoin, the quintessence of scarcity premium. It's literally the only large tradable asset in the world that has a known fixed maximum supply. By its design, the total quantity of Bitcoins cannot exceed 21 million.
Bitcoin is the hardest money that has ever been invented.
If you don't have my private key, you cannot spend my Bitcoin, period. And this is the power of Bitcoin.
It's the first time we figured out how to create true property that you can take possession of with full custodial rights.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Talking in Bits, where we walk you through Bitcoin bit by bit so we can provide you with the information you need to succeed and persist. Back with episode 63, because y'all couldn't get enough on round one, I brought my man Stakamoto here to get round two in. How's it going, brother? How you doing?
Man, it's going well. Let's get it in.
It's going good, man. Yeah, thank you for coming back, first and foremost. Repeated guest, friend of the show.
Thank you for having me again. It was a dope conversation last time. I appreciate, all the reception we've gotten, my first one. So let's get the second one in. Yeah,
definitely. So a lot's been going on with you and Base 58, and you guys got some big key announcements that you've announced recently. So without further ado, let's just get into that stuff, man. What do you guys got going on?
Oh, man. So we have a conference we're doing, a technical focus conference called Bitcoin Plus Plus. We're going to be we're hosting it in conjunction with Pleb Lab. And it's going to be the 7th of June through the 10th. So the first 2 days are going to be, days full of workshops and educational information, and what you expect from conferences. And then the second half of the conference will be on the 9th and 10th, and that's going to be a hackathon that's organized by Pleb Lab at the I think they're planning to do it at the Bitcoin Commons.
Nice. All right. So 3 days of just straight, coding pretty much. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
4 days. Yeah, 4 days.
4 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first two, there'll be workshops and a lot of, so it won't all be coding, but it'll definitely be very, developer focused.
Yep.
In the content and the workshops we're doing. And then, the second day is just building. So, if you have design skills, or if you have ideas, even if you aren't a developer, you can still try to find a team to be a part of and contribute in certain ways. But definitely, it's definitely going to be very hands-on, in the nitty-gritty, trying to get out there and build things.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up design skills, because I've been having a lot of conversations lately where it's obviously the fundamentals of Bitcoin are kind of ironed out. We expect transactions to do certain things, et cetera, but the design in Bitcoin is still far behind. Is that something that you guys are focused on, or is it just anybody in general?
Anybody in general could come, but definitely, design is important. Obviously, when it comes to tools, you can have the coolest tool in the world, but if nobody uses it, then it doesn't really matter. So that reminds me of this book I read. One of my homies put me on to it called The New Thing. And they were kind of talking about, I think it was a story in it. It was kind of on the cusp of the commercial internet. It was what the story revolved around. It was written by Michael Lewis, the guy who Moneyball and some other books that are popular. Yep. But long story short, the story was basically about some form of a cable box. Essentially, there was an engineer's wet dream that just never took off. Right. And it's just basically, it was perfectly engineered, and it was the coolest thing out to the people building it, but it just never got any commercial traction. So, we're with the hackathon, it's a package deal as part of the conference ticket. But anybody, that wants to come to the conference, we definitely are focusing more on developers and trying to build out the, just that space, or I guess candidate pool. We're going to have at the hackathon, at the conference part of, or the educational part of the conference, we're going to do a recruiting dinner and whatnot for companies that are looking to hire devs. But, design, the people, if you're in design and whatnot too, that's definitely on the, I would say still technical side of things in terms of Bitcoin, even though it's not development specifically. But design is super important, and we definitely, if you're a designer and you're interested in trying to get hired, then you come on out. And
I think that's how you hear a lot of people say about like onboarding the next, masses or the next million. And I think design plays a critical role there, because like you just said, I mean, it's cool if all the technical people get it, but the technical people don't make up the majority.
Right.
And it's sort of that way. And like when you talk to somebody technical, like they kind of go on these long-winded answers, where I call it techno babble, right? And it's like somebody who's a little bit more organized with themselves can give you some metaphors and kind of like clean up that language or whatever. But those are the people that I consider designers, the guys that could, guys and ladies that can actually organize the techno babble and make it cool, make it fun. And then, the guys behind the scenes in the back end are definitely just techno babbling and making it more complicated in that sense. But I know they go together. But when I think about onboarding the next masses, I think about like, well, how do we make this Cash App friendly, right? Like that level.
100%. No, I think I kind of see developers and designers as like, peanut butter and jelly, right? Like you need them both for the sandwich, right? You're not gonna make a good sandwich otherwise, but you definitely need the right amount. And to your point, you have to have somebody that can translate to a known population. Like you need the person in between that can be like, okay, I know what they're saying in technobabble, but let me translate it to the lay person speak, so that everybody can be on the same page, and we can kind of come to a common ground and build up from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know if you can say this or not, but what's the response so far? Are you guys getting a lot of people to sign up? How do people sign up? Whoever's listening, if they're interested.
Right. So you can go to BTC plus with the plus spelled out. So BTC plus.dev. So that's the website. Like we actually just got the website up this past week. So we've had some different we've had some people kind of streaming in as we go. Right now we're rolling out, like we have the speaker list on there, but we're kind of putting more descriptions as to what the workshops are, but we've gotten like a really good reception to the lineup on the speakers. And then, on the hackathon side, Pleb Lab is organizing that, and they just had the Sats by Southwest hackathon that, the really big success. They had a lot of different cool projects come out of that. So, like that's kind of, you can expect something similar out of that side of it. But we've gotten a good reception. We both on like just companies interested in sponsoring and that are hiring and basically are interested in possibly finding talent at the conference, and in terms of people interested in coming to the conference. But if you are interested, definitely get a ticket, because it's going to be a very intimate conference. It's not going to be a lot of people. Like we're going to have 100 plus. But it's going to be.
Well, that's a lot of people in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I guess, but relative, right? Like 2022 is like 30,000, right? So it's going to be the opposite of that, right? It's going to be super intimate in relation to what some Bitcoin conferences have been and are becoming. And definitely 100 people is going to be 100 plus is going to be dope. Like we love whoever comes out. Like we're super excited, but it just is not. When those tickets sell out, like it's going to just be the intimate event. So that basically once you're there, you can kind of meet people and mingle and kind of really get a hands-on feel for the different workshops we're having and meet these different representatives from the companies that are going to be there.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, shout out to Pleb Labs, but was this a cohesive idea that you guys came up with together, or did you guys go up to Pleb Labs and basically pitch it to them and see if they can help? How did that relationship start working out?
Yeah. So like I would say that with the hackathon, we Lisa was actually invited to speak, and then I kind of was just there for moral support, right? I wasn't on anybody's team, but kind of like we had the idea probably even back when they did the South by Southwest hackathon. So like we probably brought it to them then, and then we thought it was just perfect for them to to do the hackathon portion, and they were on board with the idea, and they're great guys to work with, man. Like they get to it, and super professional. So it's been great to be working with them, and we're excited for this collaboration and possible ones in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I could double on that. Hardworking folks, always pushing, motivating, inspiring when you see them do what they do and how they get around. Shout out to them over there. But now that you said Bitcoin Miami, man, last time we spoke, you told me you were heading there. Shitcoin conference? Nah, come on, hit me with the lowdown, man. How'd it go?
Man, I'll say that there's definitely, a lot of advertising. There might be a little more like muddy the waters, but I would say signal wise, for the most part, I didn't really watch a lot of the speeches just because of the idea, like watch them later. But it definitely, there's definitely plenty of Bitcoin signal there. I'm not gonna, I'm not really speak to like what they have to do to try to subsidize, what's going on. But I would say it's kind of like, you get out what you look for, right? So ultimately, I'm like maybe as a new pleb or as a pre-coiner, it might be a little on the fence of trying to wade through some of the promoters that were there, but I would say largely that it was a well put together event. And like I have a homie that is art director there, and he did a Bitcoin themed art gallery, and that was dope. That was like probably one of my favorite parts of it. Shout out to Tommy. But
hey.
But yeah, no, I'm not like, I'm kind of the type of person, if I'm not in the arena, then, I don't really try to talk on people who are. And overall, I think it was great. It was a great event. Like, sure, there was some promotions that, of maybe companies or projects that I wouldn't really get behind personally, but, that's kind of their decision making and
yeah.
I'm not really a part of it, but I think overall it was great. It was a great conference, and there definitely was plenty of Bitcoin signal, and I had plenty of fun kicking it with Bitcoiners the whole time. So you get what you get out what you look for. I would say there.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I just spoke to Des Dickerson from Thunder Games, and she actually kind of gave a really good point where she's like, look, if we got to use the shitcoiners' money to basically host a bigger conference, and that's the price to pay to just kind of have them shitcoin around, but that money then gets put right back into the the events and the festivities and stuff, then that's a fair trade-off. Like, fuck it, we just take the bag and we just make it all Bitcoin. I think last year I was a little bit sour about it, like, a lot of shitcoin. This year I think I was more understanding because this year, which is the next topic I want to get into, this year I felt like, I've been around the Bitcoin community more in person, right? That's how I met you. That's how I've met a lot of the people that I've met this year. So it made sense to me now watching from a distance this year. That's like, nah, I know what it's like when you're around Bitcoiners, and what we're seeing out here is not what it is. There's a lot of shit going on in there that's real Bitcoin. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, I would say 100%, man. Like there are people that I met that I've been following, before, and it's definitely a high signal event, like, in terms of just the congregation of Bitcoiners, right? Like I'm sure you wouldn't mind, but I'm not going to say who, but there was a podcaster that I follow for a while that I hadn't met yet, that I ended up kicking it with him down there and for like, one of the nights. And I met him at Beefsteak, but then later in the week, we ended up kicking it a little bit more. And that's one thing I'll say that I can't speak for everybody. I haven't met all of the people people might know on Twitter, but I would say I've met a number of people on Twitter in real life that, are very welcoming and it's just, if you come up to them just as a normal person, right? Like, and you probably don't, I don't really fanboy out with nobody like that for real, but if I respect you, I'm gonna tell you I respect you. And I feel like there's plenty of people I've met that when you come to them like that, they're very receptive and open. So yeah, like to Dez's point, there's it's not like there's no strings attached to the money. It's not like they're just giving the money and not expecting any type of promotion in return. But ultimately, I kind of feel like it's similar to maybe how some people might feel about podcasts, like having advertisements, right? Like it's ultimately, it's kind of one of those things. If the options are not having it at all, or having it and having to wade through some of the promotions I don't agree with, I would rather just wade through the promotions I don't agree with. So it's better, in my opinion, it's better to have it. And, you know, plenty of people who have opinions, and if you have opinions, don't go, right? But ultimately, I enjoyed myself. I can't imagine what it's like to put on an event of that, a production of that size. Like, just being down there, like, it was a lot of moving parts. So, you know, kudos to them, regardless of how you feel about the shitcoinery. Kudos to them for putting on the event. Definitely think that there was plenty of Bitcoin signal, and you know, ultimately, you know, sometimes there's kind of an idea of you know, us as Bitcoiners wanting to protect people, you know, kind of like how parents want to protect their children, right? Like, and not to say that we're like Bitcoiners generally are like sunning people, you know, trying to be like, you know, you're my child or anything, but ultimately, like, sometimes you just have to let people learn lessons on their own, right? You know, you can't always save people, and ultimately, I think that there's more than enough like real Bitcoiners in these type of events, like at Miami, that, you know, for people that are receptive to it, that, you know, you can just get pure Bitcoin signal. You don't have to worry about the shit coins, right? Like, so it's just a learning curve and a spectrum that you know, some people are further along, and you kind of want people to be further along with you, but it just takes time.
Yeah, I agree with that. About the ads on the podcast thing, I mean, I think we're opening up an arena where these ads are not really necessary, and, you know, value for value streaming and stuff like that. And although I do know that, you know, a lot of the budget that some of these podcasters have is not enough to just do value for value podcasting and streaming that way, but I still think that, you know, if podcasting is to stay the open medium that it is, meaning that right now, you know, I don't have anybody off the head, but I could say, fuck this person, right? And the only way that we can continue to kind of have that open talk is to not allow a big advertiser to come in and be like, nah, you know, you're gonna have to drop that from that episode, or we about to pull the bag away from you.
Right.
So that's an internal battle that as a creator I have, but also another conversation with other podcasters that I would love to have. It's like, you know, is it really worth the bag? And maybe it is. I don't know, but I think we need to get away from that.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of just like, you know, it's open free market of ideas, right? Ultimately, some people, it is worth the bag, right? It's kind of like, you know, there are certain underground rappers that will never make it big, and they're okay with that because they're more focused on the craft. And other people that part of their idea of being a rapper is making it big, right? And you know, they might sacrifice some of their creative control over their art for the sake of making it, right? And ultimately, I'm not gonna, you know, as you as an artist or as a celebrity, like, you know, that's whatever pursuits you have, that's on you, right? Like, ultimately, the way I feel, like, if, you know, either I gravitate to music or I won't, but I don't really try to venture into having opinions about people I don't know about, right? Like, I gotta feel like a lot of problem with society is people can't remove art from the artist. And there's certain examples where maybe the artists, like, their inclinations might flavor the art in a way that reminds you of the things you don't like about them, right? But I would say largely, ultimately, it's just like, you know, people are people, and if somebody wants to get the bag and self-censor, that's their right. Like, you know, I might, if like they lose me as a listener, then that's just the gambit they took, you know, that, and that's why, you know, I respect like somebody like you. It's just like, you know, if as long as you want to stick to the principle of you know, not having to self-censor and do value for value, I'm all for that, man. Like, but if one day you were like, I can't really swing this without maybe getting a sponsor, then that's fine too. Like, you know, ultimately that's your choice. And, you know, I just think that you know, people just find, you get in where you fit in, right? Like your niche might be the fact that you can literally just do it value for value. And that might not be for everybody, right? Like, you know, I guess Adam Curry, I've heard has had really good success with it, right? Like with the value for value model. But, you know, he's also the podfather, right? So that makes sense. Yeah. But you know, everybody can't be Adam Curry, you know, and right. not that everybody should strive to be him anyway. But, you know, I'm kind of just like, get it how you live, right? Like there's trade-offs to everything, and even in Bitcoin, you know, there's trade-offs to doing one way or another way, right? So it is, you know, I think there's a lot of like purism in Bitcoin that I think is kind of, ironically enough, antithetical to kind of the idea of you know, just free choice, right? Ultimately,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like even with shitcoining, like, I don't agree with it. And I don't, whenever you're getting over somebody, I think that's a problem. But ultimately though, like, I think that people should have, the choice to lose their money, right? If you want to go gamble your money away, that's on you. Like, I don't think that I should, as long as you are fully aware of, what is, I guess what waters you're wading into, like I kind of just more on the side of, fuck it, do you. But
Yeah.
I definitely do understand the idea that, once you take somebody's money, a lot of times they're not just gonna give it to you for free, right? There's very few times when money comes with no strings at all. And that's just the trade-off of like, am I willing to take this money with the strings that are attached to it? And that's kind of, if you are, then so be it.
Yeah, I agree with the, not getting in people, the overall consensus of not getting into people's, way of getting their money. That all makes a huge sense to me. I just like, I don't know, man. To me personally, maybe I'm just autistic in that sense. To me personally, it's just one of those things where once, it's like a routine thing to you. So like once you get that easy bag, right, you continue to look for the easy bags. But what ends up happening is what I'm looking at in the long run is you done got in the bag in so many different ways. And you're right, to each their own. But eventually, you pretty much just lose ownership of everything you got.
No, right, yeah.
And that, yeah. So to me, it's like, work the high road. You know what I'm saying? Do it as long as I can do it. Be as creative as I can do it. But at the end of the road, or once I start traversing the ocean, I can dictate exactly what it is that my content is. It's mine. It belongs to me. And nobody else can, muddy those waters. And I think what a lot of people do early on to get in position to get more viewers or to get in position to, get a bigger following or the bag or whatever is they give up the future decision of being able to dictate their course.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people look that far ahead. I think they're looking immediate.
Yeah. And I can understand that. Like, and as a creative, that might be a trade-off you never want to make. But ultimately, it's kind of just, for me, it's kind of like, that if we're in an open sea of creativity, there are a lot of pirates and there are a lot of, that are just going out there and getting it. And the other ones that, are more paid help, right? Ultimately. And if I don't think that, that it's, my duty to like hold people to a higher standard for themselves, basically, right? Like ultimately, if you want to sell your soul, then sell your soul. Like I'm like that's not on me to tell you what's right and wrong, right? Like it I just kind of how I feel about it, right? But yeah, I respect you for, standing on your principles, right? Because ultimately, that's kind of one of the things is just like, these people, they don't care about my respect, ultimately, right? Like, I don't delude myself to think that they're sitting around being like, what does Stakamoto think about me getting this bag, right? So ultimately, if I just lose respect for them, like, then, like, we can both live with that. Like, I can live with that, they can live with that.
Yeah.
And we just move on.
That's true.
And I feel like that's just the thing that I don't get with a lot of people, is just why people are so caught up in, well, I feel like I get it to a certain extent, like, and maybe this is just me assuming things, but, I kind of feel like sometimes people internally have an internal battle that they want to justify by people being on their side, that I just try to fight as much as I can personally. I'm like, if you don't agree with me, then we can agree to disagree. And I'm fine having an argument, right? But ultimately, I'm not about to, like, I try not to, at least, like, really lose sleep over somebody disagreeing with me, right? Like, because ultimately, like, what does it really matter? Like
Yeah.
Like, especially somebody I don't really know that well. Like, it's one thing if it's like a friend and I'm trying to convince them to get into Bitcoin because I think that'll be their financial salvation in the future. That's one thing, right? Like, hey, I'm trying to get you in this lifeboat. Like, like, listen to me, please. Like, but it's a whole nother thing. It was just like, somebody that is just doing their own thing and never really ask my, like, it's unsolicited opinion. And I'm telling you, hey, like, you need to do it this way because, you're giving up your creative control. But it's like, why do I care so much? Like, that's their creative control ultimately. And that's, I just, just won't listen to it as much. Like, one example I would say, and this might just be his own musical journey. It might be the fact he got more pop. But like, I would say The Weeknd's music, like, I I'm much more of a, like an early weekend like trilogy fan than I am anything that came since, right? And there are like a couple songs here and there that I'm like I can still bop to, but like I feel like largely the weekends, like music has shifted from the early weekend, which ultimately that might just be just evolution generally. It's just like I can't expect somebody to be the same person 10 years later, but to a certain extent, I don't know how much of it is pop. Him kind of like trying to reach a larger audience, but it's just basically the result is I just listen to Trilogy, like that, and I just don't listen to most of his new stuff, and I'm sure he's okay with that, and I'm okay with that. So it's just, it is what it is.
That's a great example, because I feel the same way. But like you said, I'm sure The Weeknd could give two fucks if I listen to the new stuff or not. He's touring the world and doing that, but
and it's kind of
I don't know. Maybe it's a go ahead.
Sorry, now it's one of those things of like being in a niche community, right? Like where ultimately it's just like to a certain extent, I understand wanting to protect culture, but you can't want to protect culture and want to spread culture at the same time, right? Like ultimately for rap to make it globally, people are going to start rapping in their own languages, right? Like it might have started in English. It might have started in the English language in the Bronx, New York. Yeah. But it went to the South, and I'm from the South, right? Like so I got in, I got into rap, through a southern ear, and there are people now rap is all over the world, right? The people who rap in Spanish and Korean, right? And ultimately is one of the things where if you want to share culture, you can't always protect it, to the extent of being a purist, because people aren't going to see the world the same way you see it, and it's kind of just like I kind of feel like ultimately the eternal September problem, which is in reference to when the internet really started to hit that like critical mass of new people coming into the internet and like the original culture changing that I wasn't even a part of, right? Like I was kind of always I was kind of a late bloomer to the internet, where I was more growing up. I more cared to be in front of the TV than I did the internet, and that kind of like really shifted in college, where now I really don't watch much TV. But ultimately it's like if my entrance into the internet was gated to like the purity of people before 2000, like how they got into the internet, then I just wouldn't be an internet user, right? So ultimately there's always give and take when culture is shared, and there are things that are fused, right? And I just think that ultimately like sometimes becoming mainstream, you lose some of the things that made the culture like attractive in the first place, but you gain something else. Yeah. And sometimes the culture is irreparably damaged in certain ways, but that's just growing pain in my opinion, and ultimately like in the free market of ideas, the most popular idea wins, right? So if but you can still have an intransigent minority, as Taleb would say, and you have the underground purists in rap, like the backpack rappers and the backpack fans. That culture is still alive and well, and ultimately, if that culture never grows from a small knit group, then so be it. Like that just means that's as far as that culture goes. Like and to a certain extent, like some cultures can't grow past a certain point, because then they do lose the close knit part of it, right? And it just is what it is. Like you can't turn a tribe into a town, right? It morphs into something totally different. Like either you have a tribe or you have a town, and like there's enough space in the world to have both.
Yeah, and there's rare unicorns that can make differences there. And like Tech Nine, I like to think of Tech Nine as one of those guys. MF Doom. It's like these guys that continue to stick to what they do and have done forever, but they were able to build a town. I mean, these guys continue to just be the biggest thing ever while being stuck, true to themselves. So at what point, and this is prevalent in Bitcoin, especially on Bitcoin Twitter, and your idea, at what point does somebody become a sellout? And the reason I bring that up is, just today, I don't know if you've been seeing the whole Zuby thing. Have you? And it's just not Zuby. This happens like I would say every few days on Bitcoin Twitter. Somebody's called a sellout. In your mind, do you even care about that word sellout, or do you give people the space to do what they want to do? Or
for me, like it's kind of more a respect thing, right? Like and so it's kind of like me. I would I don't really use a word like that for real. But if I were to define it, I would say you sell out whenever you promote something for money that you wouldn't do yourself. Ultimately, like if
isn't that ads though? Like if I think about like one of these podcasters, isn't that like what the ad thing is though? Is like you're saying, hey, use the Ledger wallet. Okay.
Yeah, no, dude, I agree. Like I agree. Yeah. Like that's on the spectrum of selling out to a certain extent. Like if you don't use the Ledger wallet, is like kind of what I would say selling out. If you do use it, then like. I would say that's more like, if you use it and you can get paid to promote it, then like you just found a good way to promote something you like to do, right? Like if ultimately you were able to get paid to like promote rap music, like your favorite artists, like your top 10 artists, right? I wouldn't consider a sellout for promoting your top 10 artists, even though you're getting paid to do that, right? But like I kind of see it more of a selling out whenever it's like opposed to your internal values, like which I can't really determine per se. But it's just like one of those things, like, I would say that I'm not going to speak on the podcast themselves, but there's been like examples of like, this is the top exchange I use now, that like, now just a new episode and now it's a new top exchange they use. Like I use this all the time to like, and it's just like, okay, well, what's the last top exchange, right? Like I like the way I kind of, if I had, my magic wand, which I don't, but like, I would feel better personally as a listener if like some podcasts, instead of like them recording the promos, like they just allotted time, kind of like commercial, right? Like it's like whenever if you watch ESPN, just for the sake of example, like the commercial on ESPN aren't endorsed by ESPN or recorded by ESPN, right? Like or the things being promoted. It's more like they bought this time from us to promote whatever they want. Right. And it's kind of like, I am more of that. Like, I kind of wish the podcast ads are more like that. Whereas like, it's only the onus of the ad is on the company promoting their product versus like now it kind of being like as a podcaster, I like this product. Right. And this is, if you want this and that, and, like, which is once again, on the spectrum of making the content available versus it not being there, like I'd rather deal with the ads, right? Because ultimately I can just skip through them. And a lot of times I do skip through them, right? Like, so, it's one of those things where ultimately it's kind of like the problem that Netflix is having right now with their subscribers is if everybody tried to nickel and dime you and like you have to subscribe, like, subscribe to 10 different streaming services to, watch what you used to watch if you watch TV like that, then like that, it just gets to a point where you might have to like pick and choose, right? Versus if the podcasters are able to basically be subsidized by companies that ultimately I don't have to patronize. Like, it's kind of just I'm not gonna say necessary evil, but for lack of a better word, right? Like, I just think it it's just like one of those things that, I kind of look at it as if I couldn't have this without the ads, am I willing to put up with it? And I would say a lot of podcasts, yes, I'm willing to put up with it, right? Because ultimately I still listen to the podcast, but I would wish that it wasn't so much like I like this product, right? Like, it's kind of like, less influencing, more like they're paying me for this ad space.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a great example. I never thought about it in that fashion, but you're right. If people pay for the space, then let them pay for the space, but it doesn't necessarily be attached to you. I still kind of feel like in Bitcoin, especially the toxic Bitcoiners, that they're still going to pin it back on you. Well, why did you allow them to get that space? And why? So I don't think there's ever a win in that situation.
But ultimately,
go ahead.
You never please everybody. And that's kind of the whole thing with me. Sure. Is like the people who are like that, ultimately you're never going to please them, right? It's kind of just like the same with like people who are just super woke. Like they'll just find something else to be woke about. Like the same shit applies to Bitcoiners, right? There are definitely woke Bitcoiners, that are like, is way too purist, right? It's funny.
Yeah.
There's some like core devs that are much more like just even keen than some people who like even if you use the tools, right? Like, and I'm not telling them not to be how they are. It's just like I just think there's a lot of like self-importance, like in social media in general, and like like not Bitcoin specifically, but just I can call it out because I'm a part of the culture. But like I just think there's a lot of self-importance, right? That is just not just really like it's just not necessary in my opinion, right? Like ultimately, like I've heard this before, but like opinions like assholes, man. Everybody has one. Some stink, right? It's just like and you're not supposed to have an opinion, right? And ultimately, it's like I said, like I just really don't try to talk on people who are doing shit. Like even if I disagree on how they're doing it, like you're still doing something, right? Like you can disagree with the shit corner that went on in 2020, Bitcoin 2022. I mean, right? But what you can't do is try to act like it wasn't a big production that they pulled off, right? And for me, ultimately, they had enough Bitcoin signal where I could surround myself with Bitcoiners the whole time and just walk past the shit cornery and just like let it, just fall off, right? It doesn't. Yeah. I don't have to focus on it. And I feel like just people focus way too much on the things they hate or supposedly hate, and that's just something I don't get, like personally, because it's just like you can just focus on the things you like, and it's like I understand once again trying to save people, but nobody like in certain regards nobody has to be Superman, right? Right. Like and like I try to be more of a net than I try to be like a wall, right? Like I'm not gonna try to block you from something that you're being exposed to as much as I'm gonna try to catch you when you fall, right? So it's like okay, like like if you come in, like I have friends that they come and tell me that they ask me about Bitcoin or whatever, you think I should be in this or that. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you personally at this point I don't really think you should be in shitcoins, right? But you're a grown-ass man or woman, right? Do what you do. But whenever you learn that lesson, I'm gonna be here for you, right? Like, so if you have to touch the stove, touch it. But like, I'm gonna have the aloe vera ready, right? It is what it is, right? I'm not about to like. I don't get the idea of being mad at people for hurting themselves, right? Like, like I'm more the type of person that is like, I might not disagree with you hurting yourself, but I'm not going to try to contribute to whatever inner turmoil you have, and or I'm not going to try to like scold you for making a bad decision, right? Like I'm just gonna be like, right, like I'm not really the type of person that says like I told you so a lot, right? It's kind of more just like, well, like I don't. Like, I'm more the type of person that like I might be like I don't know what you expected, like but now that you know better, it's time to do better. So, like it is what it is, right? And it's just like I just feel like a lot of people are like what I've heard of Howard Stern fans, where basically I don't know how true it is, but I heard the majority of like the people that used to listen to him were people who supposedly didn't like what he had to say, right? Which interesting for me, it's just like that doesn't make any sense. If you don't like this podcast for whatever reason, don't listen to it. Like you just it's taking up way too much time in your head. Basically, it's kind of how I feel about it. And if you don't like it, just don't spend your time on it, right? And because nobody asked you your opinion, right? And ultimately, I get like I'm not saying to go soft on people or not call out people if like in certain regards, but it's just like there's a level in which it's just obsessive and a level of which is actually is helpful, right? Like, to a certain extent, I call out Ethereum, right? Like to people when my opinion is solicited, right? But I'm not about to like go on a crusade and like try to create a rally to just down talk Ethereum, right? That's just too much time and effort that could be spent in a more productive and positive way, right? It's just like I feel like a lot of people go the route of trying to like crash something versus build something else up, right? It's like I'm more. I don't know if I talked. I think I might have said this on the first rip we had. But like basically, I'm much more of like instead of talking about how dirty this glass is put a clean glass next to it type of person, right? So you don't have to point out all the negative things about something if you can actually show people the positives of the alternative, right? It's like, I think it's much more constructive to talk about all the things that Bitcoin can do than all of the reasons why the fiat system is shitty, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people suffer from the imaginary audience syndrome too, like in both ways, right? Sometimes they think people are watching them and their insecurities start to come out, but then there's the other side where it's like they think people are cheering them on and nobody's fucking paying attention at all.
Right, 100%.
That's a huge problem. Yeah.
No.
So and I think social media makes it worse.
No, it definitely makes it worse. Because like the problem with social media is the fact that it's detached from the physical and the
right.
The immediate. Like, so ultimately I can be whoever I want on social media, right? And that's fine. But and I operate under a NIM on Twitter, not so much for the fact that I'm trying to ultimately hide my identity, which there is a lot of reasons that I understand doing that. It's more kind of just like that I use it more as a barrier, right? Like kind of like a invisible force field between people who know me who don't, right? Like ultimately I'm not about to be like, you met me, you and I met, right? Like I introduced myself as right to
yep.
you. But for people who like just meet me off the internet, like that's just kind of a natural barrier for me, right? It'll just be like, okay, like me obviously through the internet, right? And it's just like, but yeah, to your point though, I think a lot of people just hide behind the internet in a lot of ways that give them a sense of digital confidence. It's the same as like people drink and get liquid confidence, right? It's just like you wouldn't say this type of shit if you were in front of me, right? Or if you're in front of these people you're talking about, and there are definitely a lot of examples when giving anonymous opinions might be the best route, but ultimately though it just it just is like it's very easy to be the person that tried to tear somebody down, right? And like even if like the points you're making are salient points and actually might have a lot of truth in them, right? But ultimately though it just, like I said, I'm much more the type of person that I'd rather just hold up somebody high that's doing things right than like try to knock somebody else off a pedestal that I don't think they should be on, right? Like it's just a where you put your energies thing. And personally, I'm just not the type of person like that just wants to put all their energy in like trying to save people from other people, right? Like I rather just I rather just just help people find the signal from the jump and just be there whenever they're ready to hear like, okay, you were wrong. Like like you put a false sense of confidence in this person, right? Like I think, I don't know who I heard this from, but like the concept of confidence crutches is real, right? A lot of people have confidence crutches and be like, well, the mainstream media told me this, so like this person that I trust told me this, and I think ultimately people in general just have to take a step back and just be more discerning with who they listen to. But I just don't feel that it's my place to tell people like you're making a bad decision and like like it just is. It's just not, in my opinion. And some people might take that as like, well, you're just gonna let people get screwed, and ultimately that might be the case in certain regards. But like I said, I'll try to be there whenever they come back around, right? And that just is what it is.
Now it's because not everybody's like that. So like, would you is that an acquired skill that you build over time? Would you say your mama just raised you right? What would be the reason that you are that way? I'd
probably say it's definitely like life experience. Like, just
okay.
I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have led me to the type of person I am. And I can't really like look at one or another. But like, I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with just people not agreeing or understanding me, right? And ultimately too, like I kind of feel like I just, and maybe I'm a little cynical in this regard, because there definitely, there are people who have given good feedback on the last pod I did, right? But I'm kind of more the type of person that most of the time I don't really give a fuck what people have to say on social media. And if I do, like, it's definitely people who like, I think are genuine people and like, are well reasoned. But largely, I kind of just like think the same in reverse. And most people really don't care what I have to say ultimately, like, and the people who do are the people who I connect with. And ultimately, it's just like I just think that you attract the type of energy you put into the world, right? So if you're always arguing on Twitter, then like that's the type of people you're going to attract. People who like to argue on Twitter, right? And I just, I can definitely argue. Like people that know me in person will definitely be like, mind like having arguments, and I really like, I'm the type of person, I don't really get tired. Like if there's a topic that I feel strongly about, I don't get tired about arguing. Like if you say something back to me, I'm gonna rebut you back and forth. Like we can go on for hours, like rebutting each other, right? But ultimately, it's just like I don't do that on the internet. Like it's just I just don't engage a lot in like digital ways of communication. Like I'm much more of a physical communicator, and like so that's probably another reason why I don't really just use the megaphone of Twitter, as much as I could, just because ultimately I just prefer to pull up and talk to you, right? Or I prefer to like get on a video call like this, right? If I have to talk to somebody, that's not near me, I want to be able to see your body language and your reactions to what I'm saying, right? And so like it's just my personality type. I wouldn't say it's a skill per se, like, because it's kind of just my mode of operation. But I will say that it is a positive trait in my estimation for myself. Just to not be too self-important, but also just not to understand that like most people just, they want you on their side, want to convince you of something is because they're still like grappling with it themselves, right? Like they're like as we say in the South, a hit dog will holler, right? Like if you start touching people's insecurities, then a lot of times they'll show you. And so that's another thing too. It's just like I try to be empathetic in certain regards, and I feel like part of being empathetic is understanding that if I say something somebody disagrees with, there's probably a reason, right? And ultimately, if I talk to you enough and I like neither one of us budge on our opinions, either both of us are like, just stuck in our ways, or one of us is stuck in our ways. And it might be me, it might be you, but engaging at the point that either one of us or both of us stuck in our ways, engaging just doesn't really matter. Like you just start doing it for your own ego at a certain point. Yeah. And so it's just, I just very much just try not to engage, right? With things that boost up my ego, boost up other people's egos in ways that really aren't productive or positive, right? It's purely just an ego boosting activity, and I try to recognize that, and like I definitely am very opinionated with things, and there have been times where I've had to like take a step back and either apologize for something I have expressed to people I care about, like or just like come back around and be like, I was wrong about that, or like now I've thought about it, my opinion on it has shifted, but there takes trust to do stuff like that, right? Like I have to trust you and vice versa, right? Like like I said, if I don't really think that you care what I have to say ultimately, I'm not going to engage with you. So it's just like it's not easy to build trust over the internet, especially with people who not hide behind, but who especially like when people don't use their actual likeness, as their profile pictures, like including myself, right? Like there's somebody today, this in our cohort, of students that like basically he was just like asking me like, who are you? Like, like basically who is the person behind the NIM? Right. And once I told him, he was like, oh, well, you know, thank you for the work you're doing with Base 58, like, you know, as you know, a co-founder. Right. But it's just like, you know, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. Right. That ultimately there are a lot of people who, you know, don't associate my real life identity with my Twitter profile. And that's like what I went for in doing that. But, you know, like ultimately I understand that people are not going to trust me as much, which, you know, right. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, like act like I'm surprised because people don't trust a NIM just because it's a NIM. Right. Like, and so ultimately I guess to wrap all this up is kind of, I just try to have the approach that people are going to freely form their opinions based on their experiences the same way I have. And I haven't walked in your shoes or their shoes. And ultimately, if we can't find things that we have in common enough to build a sense of trust or understanding, then I just move on. Like, it's just like, I just feel like there's certain natural weeding out processes that some people just like use at the opposite, right? Like some people use things that they should weed people out of their life as a funnel to bring more people into their life. And it's just like, you know, they just invite all the people they should otherwise be weeding out of their lives. And I try to weed out as many people, you know, that don't bring me more happiness, wisdom, knowledge, money, whatever combination thereof out of my life. And I also try not to take things personally whenever other people, like, they might see me as a way to do that for themselves, right? So it's like, you know, some people argue because they see that as a way to get more clout. So, you know, if, you know, ultimately I'm not, like, I try not to be upset with people like that because I don't have to engage, right? So you're not gonna get no clout off of me because I'm just not gonna engage with you. But like, if you're trying to get clout off of me, I'm also not gonna be mad at you for doing that because, like, you know, that's you know, there are incentives to doing that are leading you to that point. That if I try not to understand or try not to put myself in your shoes, might be confusing and might be infuriating to me. But, you know, once I understand that, okay, like, you get Twitter followers by doing this type of stuff, and you know, ultimately, whether you monetize your Twitter followers or you just use them to, you know, as for like a sense of self-purpose or self-worth, I'm not be mad at you for that, right? Like, yeah, that's, you know, everybody's self-interested. Like, and I feel like a lot of people just don't want to grapple with the fact that people are self-interested, right? You know, including your friends and family. And that's something that I over my lifetime I've had to grapple with. That, you know, there have been times where I've had friends treat me better than family, right? And you know, that just is what it is. Like, you know, and ultimately I'm okay with that now, like, because I've learned to deal with it, because, you know, it just, I try my best not to victimize myself, because, you know, to a certain point, people just stop caring, right? It's just like, you know, and you could be a legitimate victim of something that you had no control over, right? Like, you know, somebody can pull a gun on you and rob you of everything you have, but there's gonna be a point in time where people around you are gonna stop caring about the fact that it happened to you, right? And true, and it's just like, you know, I take more the approach of, let me try to figure out how never to let this happen again, right? so you know, as opposed to like trying to get sympathy or you know, a sense of safety from, you know, victimizing myself, especially for things that really don't matter. Like somebody was mean to me, right? Or somebody said something to me, like, you know, that I didn't care for, right? It's just like, you know, if somebody called me stupid, that only will affect me if I actually somewhere in my heart believe that, right? But otherwise I'm just like, okay, like, you know, okay, I get you, like, and move on. So, you know, that was probably a long answer to say that, you know, it's
value for people that don't know how to control their emotions, man. You just gave a whole 101 lecture on how to stay poised and how to, you know, keep things that you have control of in your control and not worry about the things that you can't control, which is very stoic in a sense.
Be honest with you, man. Like my personality, the type of people who get under my skin the most are people that I love the most, right? Like it takes me, like, you know, I don't, like, you have to be able to get me upset, I have to care about our relationship, right? Yeah. And if, like, for you to get me upset, there's probably something that you know, ultimately I might want different in a certain way in our relationship. Even if I'm the one in the wrong, potentially, that is not the case. It upsets me. But otherwise, like, you know, like it's just like I said, I can very easily cut off somebody I don't care about. Like it's nothing to me. Like you know, I don't mind people having opinions, especially people I don't have any qualms of never seeing again in my life. Right. So it's like, to get under my skin, you have to actually care about you a lot of times. So like that. Yeah. That makes it where the times where I actually have to, you know, do some introspection, or I have to, like, you know, be empathetic, are times where it's producing a better relationship with somebody, right? Like, you know, like otherwise I just won't care, right? It's like, okay, well, you know, like I'm fine with agreeing to disagree. Like, I have no problem doing it. For sure. Like, but the more I know and love you, the harder time I have doing that, because, you know, like I will want to come to mutual understanding, but I am opinionated, so like, you know, it can get sometimes to a point where you know, we have to agree to disagree, but it just takes a while. Like it just gets to a point where we both blue in the face of talking about it, and it's like, okay, whatever, fuck it. Like, you know, it, like, we'll agree to disagree. But like, if I don't know you or care about you, like, you can tell me your opinion, and I'll tell you my opinion, and you feel some type of way about it. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. You are entitled to how you feel, and I, you know, I 100%, you know, hope that you continue to have that right. You know, I hope that we live in a country where you know, you can disagree with me and I disagree with you, but we don't have to force our views on each other, right? And that's really not necessarily the country we live in now. But nope. You know, but ultimately, you know, it like, that's the way I approach things, and you know, I'm very much like you know, leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. But you know, fuck with me and let's find out.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point here to wrap this one up. I think we got to make this like a segment, man. I don't know. We don't have enough time on the clock to be able to have these conversations, man. It's a lot of value here.
Man, I appreciate you for having me on. And man, like, you know, I want to reciprocate, like, to you for, you know, doing this show and bringing me on, and to the Bitcoin community at large. So yeah, whenever I'm available and you're available, let's do it again.
Yeah, nah, I love that. So Stack, give them, you know, I know you've given it in the last episode and a little bit earlier, but give them all the call to actions. Let the people know where they need to go. Okay, yeah. So if you want to find out more about the conference that we're hosting, you can follow BTC plus on Twitter, or go to BTC plus PULS.dev, DEV. That's our website. You can find us at Base 58 at Base 58 BTC on Twitter, and you can find myself at Stakamoto 21, STAKAMOTO 21. So between there, you can get in contact with us, DM me. You know, let's connect, and you know, whoever finds myself or Base 58 or Bitcoin Plus through this podcast, thank you for listening to the end, and thank you for connecting. Yeah, absolutely. You guys go and check that stuff out. I actually got to wrap this up so I could go see Stack tomorrow, because I'll be out there, so I got to wrap up and do that. But this is a nice reminder, y'all, that if y'all want to get on the show and share your thoughts and share your opinions, we have the Mind Your Block segment on the solo rips, where you can donate $10,000 to the show. We give 50% of that to the devs, and then you can come in and talk your shit and mind your block. Reach out to me, Talking in Bits, on Twitter, DeFBeD, DeFBeD. That's my personal handle. Reach out to me there, and we can make that happen. As for watching and listening to the show, We prefer Bitcoin TV over YouTube. We're on both of them, but go ahead on and check out Bitcoin TV. Fantastic platform, up and coming. Same thing for audio. You can find this on Apple and all the legacy stuff, but we prefer you check us out on Fountain. We appreciate the sats that you guys are streaming to us for all this valuable info. Stack, I appreciate you one more time.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for having me on again. And I'm excited to see you tomorrow.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, I'll be there, and we'll talk sooner rather than later, and we'll do this again because these are just valuable and we don't have enough time.
I mean, let's do it. I'm down.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you next week. This wraps up episode 63. I appreciate you guys as always. Later.